Hey, thank you for watching / listening to another episode of whatever you're listening to. Paranoid American Podcast, Occult Disney, Paranoid Programming, Sound Science. There's a bunch of them, but whatever it is, I appreciate that you're listening / watching to this right now. And if you really want to support Paranoid American, if you didn't know this, in addition to being a podcast, we've actually been publishing comics since 2012, so over a decade. While I was still at Disney, I started this company to publish a little book called Time Samplers, and it's exploded into 60 different titles at this point. And the biggest one just launched, at least at the time of recording this, but it's at nasacomic.com, stands for Never a Straight Answer, and it's about Stanley Kubrick directing the moon landings. And I just want to show you some of the cool kind of exclusive things you can get by backing this thing early. So if you go to nasacomic.com, it'll automatically bring you to this Kickstarter page. And you can see, bam, hit our goal at the time of recording this, 100%. So it's definitely going to be made. So you'll absolutely get a copy of this thing if you back it. If you're listening to this in the future and this page isn't here or brought you somewhere else, then likely you can just buy it right now. So you have to skip all this and just buy the damn thing. But here's a couple little previews of artwork. Here's different variant covers that are for offered. This top left one, I actually have in print. I got a couple of prototypes printed up just to make sure that it would look good. It looks great, looks amazing, full color, gloss pages. It's got a nice hefty weight to it because it's 40 different pages of all unique art that you haven't seen before. There's also going to be a variant cover. There's going to be a hollow foil cover. And then there's a little postcard print that anybody that gets a physical copy of the comic in any form, they're going to end up getting this postcard size print here. Here's some different artwork samples from the 3 different artists that contributed to this book. And then here's the important part, the rewards. So by backing this project, you're going to get to pick some different kind of reward tier. The entry level one is this digital deluxe, which has the entire book in digital form. You'll get a PDF. It's also going to have an additional 8 different pages that aren't in any of the print versions just because they were maybe some were a little too spicy, maybe some were a slightly different art style, but I'm going to give all that in the digital deluxe along with some wallpapers and some MP3s and stuff. If you want the print one that I was just holding up here, then the entry for that one is $15. With that, you're going to get that little postcard print I mentioned. You're going to get a trading card. You're going to get a bookmark, and you'll probably get some other stuff because I always throw in extra freebies. You can ask anyone that's bought anything from Paranoid American. I hook it up with lots of extras. If you want the variant cover, which is only available in this campaign, there's a $19 tier for that. It also comes with an extra sticker. If you want the hollow foil, then that one is $29. These ones are going to be super limited. Like, these won't exist outside of this campaign for the next 30 days. So if you are listening to this in the future, sorry you missed out. You might be able to snag one in an upcoming campaign if there's extras. But if you really want this hollow foil, and you should, you can get it right now for $29. And then we've got a couple other tiers after that. We've got a 55th anniversary special for $55. That has the main cover and the foil cover and a sticker sheet and some other goodies. Here's the best value, basically. There's a $99 Cosmic Conspiracy tier, over 40% off of all the different things that are included. So this one's going to come with the main cover, the variant cover, the hollow foil cover, 3 or 4 different sticker sheets. It's going to come with 6+ stickers. It has the trading card, a bookmark. It has a custom Paranoid American Room 237 keychain. And I think the highlight of this is it's going to come with this custom embroidered Stanley Kubrick patch based on the Apollo 11 design. And if you keep scrolling down, you can see all the other extra reward tiers. All of the different items are going to be described in more detail. And I want to show you this patch right here. It's a 3-inch embroidered iron-on patch. You can put it on your Molex bag. You can put it on, anything, hats, backpacks. This is the first time we've ever done one of these custom patches, so I'm really excited about that. There's also a custom fake moon landing playset that you can select as an add-on when you go to check out. So speaking of, let's say that you're sold, you want to get a copy, you want to help support Paranoid American. If you haven't used Kickstarter before, the easiest thing to do is you just click on this project button on the page. It's both at the very top of the screen and it's at the top of the page. So you can click either one, back this project. And from here, it's going to be like a typical checkout. You're going to select which of these different tiers you want. Again, I highly recommend this $99 Cosmic Conspiracy combo. It's going to have every single thing that the campaign has to offer that's exclusive to this NASA book. You click on that, you pick the country that you're in, and then you just click on the pledge button. There's one extra last step where it's going to ask you if you want to do any add-ons, if you want to throw in like a trading card pack or another keychain or anything else. You can get some huge discounts on the backlog of Paranoid American comics. But let's say you're done with that, you click continue, and then finally, if you don't already have a Kickstarter account, you'll be prompted to make one. You can link it to Facebook. The rest of the flow is just like any typical checkout online. So I really appreciate if you would take a look. Please just back the comic, back nasacomic.com. Anyways, back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Ask about Illuminati, since the charting Archetypes. Is it Disney mind control? Is this MK Ultra Deluxe? Occult Disney, go wish upon a star. Occult Disney, should know what to chat for. Occult Disney, Video Land, Pinocchio. Occult Disney, as a bomb so below. Pinocchio seeks fun on Pleasure Island, where traffickers need just fallen minds. Captain Hook, the lost boy in Neverland, saving kids from Peter Pan's to signs. Nemo feels to survive the Barracuda, and that nobody means no one. Snow White never took another breath. Bird Prince, the angel of death has come. Occult Disney, we go from real to real. Occult Disney, Bohemian Grove and no more real. Occult Disney, ask about Illuminati. Occult Disney, we teach occult to everybody. Occult Disney, go wish upon a star. Occult Disney, you know what to chat for. Oh, Occult Disney, the new brand Pinocchio. Yeah, yeah. Occult Disney, it's a bomb so adore. Occult Disney, please enjoy the show.
You know, because if the Japanese government got upset at me, that's how you start the recording, Thomas. Thanks. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not Logan Paul.
On the bottom.
Yeah. Good to meet you, Matt.
Hi, Andreas.
Sorry,
good to meet you.
First
We're
of
doing
all, Andreas, Matt, Andreas. I've been doing Occult Disney with Matt for over a year. We might even be going on 2 at some point. And I think same with Andre. Like the same time I started doing both of the shows with you guys. So
nice.
Andreas, Matt, Andreas.
And you're Thomas. Hi. That'll be the intro. That's fine. Because recently I keep saying adult Disney podcast instead of Occult Disney.
It was because I kept pitching my adult occult over and over again. So it's
adult Disney podcast where we get erotic with the mouse. Yeah,
I mean, that one might do numbers.
That's my new intro for this boys adventure film, I guess is what they were working on at this point in time. It's Treasure Planet's our focus today. This is one of the ones I was more excited about watching. I'd never seen it before. So first time for me. Yeah.
Never?
I've never seen before either.
I remember seeing it in theaters. I loved this movie. This is one of those like perfect Disney movies. It's one of those movies that's so Disney it upset people because they're like, wait, this is like trad Disney. We don't want that anymore. We want this other. This is kind of what ended, I feel like, that style of Disney. You know, this is the last of its kind.
In what way?
Yeah.
It's almost Bluthian. It's like not quite, but it's like a deviation of like from I would say Bluth to Ted Stones, who did like the Darkwing Duck, and he also did like the sequel to Atlantis, and like all of those Disney movies. Like this is kind of like the peak of that style, you know, and one of the last of its kind in terms of like traditional animation. I loved it as a kid.
Yeah, for charting it, you know, you got the Disney Renaissance of the early 90s. We covered all that. Things start to like fizzle out a little bit with Notre Dame and Pocahontas and Mulan. Not that any of them are particularly bad. They just didn't make bank. And then Tarzan's an uptick. So they're kind of like, oh, this is what people want. You know, these digital backgrounds and kind of like I said, boys adventure. So you get that.
Yeah,
you
right,
get Atlantis. Right. You get this. I think even the Emperor's New Groove sort of kind of fits into that box a little bit. And what we'll see, we got a couple more coming. We got Homans with Ray.
Those are some great. I hope you've covered, or you do at some point, like whatever the heck Emperor's New Groove, like how it was allowed to happen, because a lot of that is just. I think that is like they kind of are giving up and not sure what to do with their formula, kind of a thing. Like the same way Tron happened is sort of the way Emperor's New Groove. Like, okay, we don't know. We trust you. We don't know what we're doing. We're old.
We did that one. It was patched together, and it was patched together in really strange ways that you can actually point out where they were setting up all these plot points and then just never resolved them because that whole team had like moved on or got fired or got disgruntled or something.
They pissed off Sting.
Them all.
Do you have a thesis on why? Do you have like a what the heck happened with Disney? Why Notre Dame? I know this is kind of prequel, but just for this conversation, I think it's interesting. Like, why did Disney do Notre Dame? Like, what? I don't know.
I feel like it might just be a bit of media exhaustion. I mean, anything you love, like give it 5 years and it's got to be something new. I can't.
Is it a conspiracy to destroy Disney? Like from the they're like, look, we want to just like what is? Why would you do Notre Dame? Notre Dame is so specifically like Miserable, sure, okay, but Notre Dame, like, and I just feel like that it was. I mean, it's so controversial of a story to do, right? Like in every direction. So I just wonder why Disney had to do that, and I feel like that's kind of where they realized they also that's where they realized, okay, we're not going to do anything like this ever again, right?
You could, I mean, Pocahontas also gets into like kind of that weird. Quasimodo historical.
These are all the
territory.
most. These are like Pocahontas and Treasure Planet, and these are some of the most Mormon, non-Don Bluth Disney movies, right? You know, like.
I think we did go into Notre Dame, and I think if you do like the occult Disney version of why they made it, like if it wasn't for monetary or cultural gain. I think it was just to, again, like get their fingers and dabble and own a little bit of that era of storytelling so that now Disney can span a large swath of time from 1600s or before all the way up to the continuity of like Aristocats and Oliver and Company, which are like 80s very on brand. And after that, they've touched every single sort of time period and little niche faction. And in Hunchback of Notre Dame in particular, they get into like gypsy magic. That's what they refer to it as gypsy magic. So now Disney kind of also owns that like that Romanian style, like
Romani gypsy princess. Yeah.
Like now there's almost no regional magic they haven't really tapped into except for maybe Russia or Tartaria or whatever.
Oh yeah, Anastasia doesn't count. Yeah, true.
Oh, that's Fox, I believe. Yeah. I guess there's also like 91, 92 is when, well, at the time, Euro Disney, now Disneyland Paris. So it might have been kind of a attempt to bop into that vibe a little bit more for, it was failing. So
that's Matt, that's a good point. That's probably the most logical reason because they needed something that they're like, hey, you guys know about this in Euro France, like you guys, your favorite heroes, we're now doing French. That makes the most sense. We're doing French.
Because you got like, Cinderella and Belle, but it's not like as specifically French as basing your movie around Notre Dame. That's like, doing the like X-Men's definitely an American movie. They spend the climax at the Statue of Liberty, that sort of thing.
I wonder if there's like bidding wars or negotiations behind the scenes, similar to how Taco Bell gets to win the fast food wars of Demolition Man, right? Because that they bid a certain point, and then when it gets over to the UK, I think like Burger King beats them. But I wonder if there's also bidding wars about who gets ownership over these cultural folklore. So I don't know, like would Russia want America, Disney to make like a Russian folk tale? Like would that be for their benefit, or would they want to like keep it back and own it so that like only Russian, nationals can work on it. Because I mean, we've seen like the same variations where Disney would make a certain animation, and then all of a sudden there'd be like a Russian twist to it, or like a slight variation. I can't remember the exact ones, but we've seen like 2 or 3 already by now.
Well, as Matt pointed out, Fox and Disney owns now Anastasia, which Don Bluth did, and Don Bluth is arguably, the scion of Disney animation style. Even if he's moved on from that, I mean, he's also put so much energy into, I think, what made Disney what it was in the past, that when we're talking about that style of Disney. So, I feel like if Don Bluth hadn't had to walk away, that he probably would have pushed for that project at some point. And then, Disney just doesn't want to Disney didn't want to tread with Don Bluth after that. Like there's a lot of anger and animosity because he secretly grabbed a bunch of animators and didn't tell people that they were working secretly on other projects and everything as they were leaving. So there's a lot of hatred between the two,
I feel like that might be the reanimated corpse of Disney in a way, because that's such a classic Walt thing to do, is to steal everyone's stuff in the middle of the night.
Oh yeah,
so
for sure.
Probably
Oswald the Rabbit and Mickey Mouse are directly Felix the Cat, right? And at first, I believe that Iwerks even did rip-offs of Felix the Cat. They started with a cat that they don't really talk about before, during the Alice in Wonderland stages. So yeah, I mean, execution of an idea is as important, or probably more important, than all of the ideas that they are running through, right? That's kind of the thing. Ideas are cheap. So I that Treasure Planet is that Don Bluth style without him, though. I think that they continued on. They're we can still do this.
Yeah, this one had been in the cooker for a really surprisingly long time. So Musker and Clements, the directors, they did The Little Mermaid, and they wanted to do this next, and were basically told to screw off and make I guess they did Aladdin after this, and then Hercules, and finally after Hercules, they let them go and make this, which cost $140 million to make, 109 worldwide. So this is one of the more massive film flops in history, actually, which it doesn't deserve. I will point out, but it, you saw in the theater, I was stuck out in the woods teaching environmental education at the time, so I didn't see many movies at the time.
I'm in a very specific demographic, and I know that the things I like are shows that get canceled in the first season, and it makes sense that this would be something I was taken to see this. It wasn't by choice. Similarly with movies like October Skies and things like that. So I don't know. This also something about Treasure Island, because Robert Louis Stevenson and that. Who's the guy who did Tarzan again? I'm sorry. And John Carter.
I always get his name wrong. It's Edward Rice Burroughs or something like that.
Edgar
Rice Burroughs. Perfect. Yeah. So these things were really important comic. I had reprints and things like that, and so I was interested in those things. I think a lot of kids didn't and weren't, and so by the time that the reason that adults liked that stuff, and we're gonna do it because this was the first time anyone ever had that idea. Tarzan's the first to do it, but all those things are tropes now that have been done in movies and TV shows that have ripped off those original things so many times that the kids are more familiar with the ripoffs and they don't see the originality of it, right? That's why John Carter didn't work. And I feel maybe a problem that happened with Treasure Planet.
Well, also eugenics fell out of favor a little bit, so it lost some of its OG DNA.
And dare I say this, if Flat Earthers were if this movie came out just a few years later, I'm pretty sure there could have been another audience.
This is the third attempt to make a sci-fi Treasure Island. Interestingly, there's a 1982 Bulgarian film, animated science fiction Bulgarian film, also kind of doing this, and a 1987 Italian science fiction miniseries.
What are the names of these? Because those both sound interesting already.
You should watch the Russian one he's talking about, because it has live action creepy pirate scenes in between it and crazy punk 88 Soviet punk music.
The Bulgarian band Tangra did the movie's music. That one's actually just called Treasure Planet, or whatever that is in Planetatana Skurovishdata. I'm sure I said that as wrong as possible. The other one is just called Treasure Island in Outer Space, which is a bit bit on the nose. It stars Anthony Quinn and Ernest Borgnine, which is pretty awesome.
Really?
Both of whom are extremely old by the time they're doing this.
This was back when Ernest Borgnine was being like inappropriate on public TV. That was like peak Borgnine.
Yeah, 1987. So that looks like fun. I've been watching Space 1999, and just looking at the picture, at least it seems to kind of have that vibe, which I can appreciate.
Well, I'm actually pleasantly surprised that you saw this growing up, Andreas, because like Matt and me, I think we both watched it for the first time this month.
Wow.
Like I knew it existed a little bit, but I guess it was just never on my radar for I was in the military at this point, so Disney movies were the farthest thing on my radar. I was watching weird stuff at this point.
So a couple things I think are interesting about this kind of Disney movie. So when they change a Disney story like The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and they keep things as authentic in terms of where the location is as possible, and then they change everything about the story, right? It's nothing like the book. But if you've read Treasure Island or seen the play or movies about it, this is really, really close. The only difference is it's happening in space instead of happening in the seas, but their boat's still, the characters are the same. He's got a weird Black Waters pirate monkey I forget exactly his like parrot thing. And his like, maybe he's got like a hover peg leg or something like that. But it's Long John Silver. It's all the same stuff. It's weirdly uncanny for a Disney movie to be that authentic to a story. It's suspicious.
Walt would never have it.
It's conspicuous. Well, no, because Walt did do stuff like that, but those were never the most famous or popular things he did either. And so I also wonder about numbers and where they're like, oh, well, this one wasn't super successful. We're not really going to push that one. It's got a limited cult audience. It's kind of like Disney put out this fantastic show. The people who were doing the Oswald the Rabbit in the Mickey rebrushed or whatever thing, they did the Three Caballeros animated show, which I hope, Matt, have you seen the Legend of Three Caballeros show?
I haven't seen the show, but I certainly rented the hell out of the VHS of the 40s movies back when I was a kid.
The original is really important because of Project Paperclip, right? Because that's connected to the South American SS information transfer that, and even before Project Paperclip, just spying that was going on in South America by Disney for the intelligence the OSS. But regardless, the new show that they made was about Donald Duck and the Three Caballeros, the other two, in a band that have to go to all of the Titans around the world and to awaken these Titans to deal with the gods, because the gods have died almost all the gods are old and dead, except for Cassandra, who has the gift of prophecy. It's like, whoa, the show with minotaurs and checkered Masonic rugs and everything.
I think we might have to actually do that one. Is this related to the sacred geometry, Donald?
Favorite show, absolutely. It's like, this is the next thing, in my opinion, after Donald Duck and Mathmagic Land. But they only released it at first, iTunes Philippines. And they're like, oh yeah, it's not a very popular show. Then they finally kind of like released it now on Disney Plus years later, right? Like almost 5 to 10 years later. And you can watch it, but not everybody knows about it, right? Like no one's heard about it. But it's like they're crazy. So Disney does this for sure, where they're like, yeah, not everybody is supposed to know about Treasure Planet. But then they tell the story like, dare I say, like a Masonic play really, really well, because they really want that story heard perfectly. So there's something about that, something about Treasure Planet, right?
Well,
Treasure Island.
You said Masonic play, and I guess I have to say that I agree with that, although I was seeing like a Mormon aspect, but I guess it's like potato tomato at a certain point when you're talking Mormons and Masons, right?
Well, I've got a huge bias, especially this month, because like I didn't watch Treasure Planet recently. I have it pretty well like in my mind, but I did watch Land Before Time and All Dogs Go to Heaven. So I'm on kind of the Don Bluth is Mormon. So I'm on the Mormon Disney kick.
Wait, is that true? I didn't know that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. BYU. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God.
He's like 99 years old. What do you think's going on? Yeah, of course he's a Mormon. He's healthy.
Since we said
trying to populate his planet.
Since we've said Bluth this many times already, another film that I have not watched 2 years before was a Bluth sci-fi anime, which was a Titan AE.
Oh God, one of my favorite movies.
I've seen that one.
Oh,
also a bit of a flop, a budget of 75 to 90 million, making 36.8. So that's on a that's on a smaller scale than Treasure Planet. But both of them were like really trying to push this animated sci-fi thing and just fell flat on its face. Another one, maybe animated sci-fi is not much of a thing.
It's weird. Yeah, people, it's weird. You think it would be more popular. I was recently in Minnesota and I met the band Lit, and I told them, I was like, man, Titan AE was like, I forget what I said. It was something so stupid. It's like Titan AE was like one of the most underrated, like one of the most profound, like most definitive things of its time, something like that. And he was just like, that, like, because obviously they felt that way when it came out too, and they were shocked that most people didn't get it, and were like more into what were people into, like the Spice World? I don't know. That was a good movie too, in my opinion. But
yeah, it was a pretty good movie.
Better than it should have been.
No, it's just interesting that because even now, I've said it on this podcast many times. I'm a pretty ardent Trekkie, and we got Star Trek Prodigy, which is pretty good sci-fi anime, but it's getting bumped around from service to service. You know, it's kind of like not really in the home with all the other Treks now. So
I really think that's smart, and I'm like, I mean, I'm more like industry centric in that like ideology, but I think having a demographic already it's good to try to find new demographics. Like, it's cool that there already are Star Treks and they're making more, and they're doing Discovery and A Strange New World. So everybody should be happy, but they're also trying to get other people into Star Trek, into a different kind of Star Trek. And I'm fine with that. You know, I'm also a big fan of Enterprise and the theme song. All right. I've covered it myself. I don't care. Faith of the heart, bro. Like,
oh, I use it as a punchline often, so that, I got that going for it. But but
it's gonna be that song is gonna be way more relevant as AI becomes more relevant, I think, too.
It becomes better as it becomes more dated. I'll give it that. Like, at the time, you're like, what are you doing? Now it's like kind of like so of its time and ridiculous there. Yeah.
Maybe I was just like hyper autistic, but I was in Silicon Valley looking around at people with like iPods and Steve Jobs turtleneck and jeans, and somehow that song seemed like a poignant mockery of everything going on, in a sense. And I felt like it was, yeah, I don't think people get what they're, I think that's also why some people were upset about it, because it kind of mocks us by depicting us. It's telling us like, this is who we are, right? And we're supposed, I don't know. But that's,
I've been on a kick lately rewatching the whole Silicon Valley series, and even being like kind of in the thick of software development as that was going on. So like I felt like I was in on all the jokes, but rewatching it, it's amazing how far ahead of its time even that was. And like Mike Judge or whoever he had on the writing team was nailing stuff left and right, especially when it came into like the neural net and like all the machine learning stuff. Like he kind of had a lot of that on the nose. So he must have been talking to like the actual people that were in and out of like the highest rings of that.
Yeah, I would also say like with Treasure Planet, it's underrated because they didn't tell people who the people were in that movie. Like the Angels in the Outfield kid, they should have been like, you know, because Joseph Gordon-Levitt is the kid in Treasure Planet, right?
That would have been kind of an interesting spot in his career, because he had, being a big animated movie, he had recorded it 2 years later, but by this point he had already kind of started moving on to his adult acting phase, because he made a pretty seamless transition.
I didn't even pick up on the voice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. This
and
is like filled with celebs.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, it's like crazy. Like Ed Martin Short, I think, is in there.
Right.
Hold on.
Not annoying me nearly as much as David Spade and Emperor's New Groove, possibly because Martin Short had done some voice acting before. That helps.
I love Martin Short, but I have also bias for Canadians. I can't help it.
I have to shout out Patrick McGoohan. This is his final film role as Billy Bones, just because I had done a Prisoner podcast last year.
That is Patrick McGoohan.
So, yeah, it's his last role. So I was like, that's kind of cool. Last time you get to hear him scream a bit. Yeah, Danger Man, the Prisoner.
There's a lot to that too.
I want to make my case that this is a Mormon movie, and I'd like to hear if it's a Masonic movie and vice versa. So I guess the very rough cut of all this is that we've got celestial ships that are powered by crystals, and that those crystals are being used by, quote, neophytes in search of treasure. And every bit of that sounds like early Mormonism to me. Like, this is Joseph Smith navigating, using crystals and seer stones, looking for treasure.
The Liahona They have the Liahona, which is like what they use to cross the seas with, essentially. And it's the same thing, which also makes its way into Titan AE, right? The map system that he has, which is also in Lensman, which I think, who did Lensman again? DF Jones.
This is new to me. Lensman?
Lensman by E. Doc Smith. E. Doc Smith's Lensman series, a triplanetary. Well, so that's like kind of the origin point for Titan AE. Just don't tell anybody. But I don't think anybody cares. They're not suing over it. But Lensman was a book series. I think they made a great anime in the 80s that's so weirdly not related to it, but awesome at the same time. But it has the idea of that Liahona. Because again, all Mormons, Mormons in sci-fi, yeah, clearly, But I don't know. I mean, I don't know the answer on John Musker or anything like that. Like, I don't know if he's an Irish Catholic apparently. So,
how do Mormons feel about transhumanism? Because it feels like that's like an element of this future that they paint in Treasure Planet, that you would just have robot appendages and then that turns you into a cyborg. But they kind of exist. You
should pull up my screen for just 1 frame, 1 second. Go to the Mormons' website about it. Yeah, that's what they feel about it.
Transhumanist Association. So someone can do it.
Do
they represent all of Mormonism, or is this just a site that you created for?
No, I didn't. I didn't make this website. There's actually a huge association of LDS that are at least 1,000 people contribute to this in general from Salt Lake City. There's a bunch of people in California.
I guess that makes it official.
There's a bunch of reasons why it makes sense that you would try to elevate yourself, right? Because the idea of bridging heaven to earth with Zion is a very LDS concept. So transhumanism does appeal to a lot of Mormons. I would say some people also would say that there's 2 kinds, right? Like there's definitely a secular, satanic, evil, post-humanist thing, and I would disassociate that from the idea of eat your vitamins and live forever. Being an immortal is totally fine. If you can,
could fall into its logical conclusion. Could it be replace your appendages with these things that are more efficient and can make your heart last longer because it doesn't have to circulate, and these things can take over muscle I think
that question is a major question asked not just by Mormons but any Gnostics or Theosophics. That's what Darth Vader is, a very Theosophic question, more man than machine. But of course, so is Long John Silver at that point, and it's also Long John Silver. I forget, but doesn't he have a computerized eye underneath his patch in this situation so that he can acclimate different light and see because a lot of pirates did that. They actually had both eyes, but they would wear a patch so they could acclimate the eye to lower and higher light for seeing further, right? So I don't know. I feel like the idea of being a bionic man, you're questioning whether or not you're making something that's different, separate. It's a Darth Vader question. Do you still have the human spirit? There's a difference between transhumanism and posthumanism. That I think is the main one. The idea to a Mormon is that God is basically a man in the sense that every possibility that you can think of, we can do, just throttled. So if you maxed out all of our scores, that would be essentially what God has the power to do. It's almost to the point that anything that's conceivable, we have some range of capacity for, but it's limited. So it's really just about, we're not even thinking about God having abilities beyond what we have. So if we're in the image of God, we just have to become full, we have to become complete, and to become completely ourselves is to become like God, right? So that is kind of transhumanism, I would say.
Okay, well, that's a very Mormon take on that, though, right? Is that you could eventually elevate yourself into being a god, but I don't know, because there's
we already kind of were, is the idea.
Well, I guess when I think of God, omnipotent, omniscient, but also I could just blink and make your head explode. If I was God, I could do that because I could do anything. And that's does anyone have that on their stat scale? Is anyone greater than a 0 on the stat scale of I can concentrate on you and your head explodes?
Well, Matt, I'm pretty sure you've seen that movie, The Men Who Stare at Goats, right? You're probably
familiar.
Yeah. I would say that's, again, these are capacities which are throttled, right? And so at a certain point, there are just unlimited apex limit. That's all it is. These are not separate from things that we could do. You could fly just not perfectly, and something else could fly perfectly. So all of these are ideas that exist, but they're basically defined by human condition. So our idea of God is a humanized idea, is kind of my saying. So really,
if we follow the end of like this movie is about Mormonism, I guess the ultimate metaphor would be that the treasure planet, which is literally a planet that has treasure filled up inside of it, but they let it go at the end, that would have to be like the Mormon godhood, or like their equivalent of like complete nirvana / enlightenment, right?
yeah, I mean, it's like what's the movie with Nick Cage about the same thing though, right? Like National Treasure, right? So it's not just the Mormon thing. Like it's the idea to a Mormon is that this is the objective thing, right? That this has been just rediscovered, that cultures all around the world have had some part of it, but there really is just one true objective thing. And that is apotheosis, right? Which is a very Masonic idea too, the idea that apotheosis. So you can achieve apotheosis through following this path to where the gold of Solomon has been hidden. But also, this is Stevenson. So the idea of Treasure Island, like this is the Berber Barbary Wars, and all of these different pirate islands that had bases and had kind of sovereignty to trade with each other and to tariff anything that was passing through their seas, right? So there's also that aspect of it where there really is something, probably that idea of like what's it called? The Oak Island or something like that. There's a metaphor there, I think, to this idea of the treasure planet, right? I mean, because it's clearly not space. Yeah.
So in this case, the treasure is not the friends you made along the way. Okay.
Well, it might be because like it's a brotherhood of men. So
well, and literally the movie ends on that. Like he sacrifices his ability to go and capture the treasure planet because he made a friend. So it is kind of that story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made a note here about the Star Trek 2 vibes, just to get back to the Trekkiness. I've been and shall always be your friend. What was that? This is funny. Just last Saturday, there were a couple small kids leaving the school I work at, and they were doing that at the door, and I was like, it looked like they were recreating, like 3-year-olds creating a Star Trek 2 moment. That was pretty fun.
They were doing it to mimic Star Trek?
No, that's just what I was thinking, because that's what it looked like. But yeah, I am thinking about the other, like you mentioned a bit of Nirvana and stuff. And, there's also kind of the, Tibetan monk thing to enlightenment, where you might some of them not claim, but there's legends of, people out there being a little higher than zero on some of these things.
Well, there were 3 main things that I guess is why I kept leaning towards Mormon in particular out of anything else, and not just regular enlightenment. And that was the reference to neophyte, which is granted that could just be fun steampunky sort of language, but at the very end, in order to find the treasure, they had to find a golden looking glass, and then when they did find the treasure, it was all written in hieroglyphics in gold, like these big gold plates full of hieroglyphics. And I can't think of a lot of other sort of enlightenment stories outside of ancient Egyptian, but which specifically have white Caucasian people finding golden hieroglyphics in order to unveil some kind of like magic treasure that's out of this world into like a celestial realm. So,
well, it's kind of like the Epic of Gilgamesh also, and he's got his friend who's, half man, right? Like the idea that's kind of as Gilgamesh is more god than man, but also his friend is half man. And like they have to go on this great broad adventure, which like leads to essentially apotheosis, right? And they don't understand it at first because I think they're just like going, and that's almost again the Star Wars thing. Like if money is all you're looking for, then money is all you receive. There's other things along the way that are more valuable, and the thing that's most valuable is to become a god. If you're Mormon.
Treasure Planet is essentially the story about trying to become a god.
I think a lot of stories are. I don't think that this is such an exclusively LDS thing. Like this is a very Gnostic thing. Apotheosis is in the Gospel of Thomas and the Apocalypse of Adam, and all of these ideas that Yaldabaoth has basically trapped us, and you're dying. You're a god soul that's dying, right? And you'll be recycled all the time. And there's
is it
a
his fault though? I always wonder that. Like, did he do it intentionally or just because he kind of sucks at his job?
Well, do you care when your parents are fighting if it's Sophia or Yaldabaoth's fault? I mean, like, that's kind of the thing. So the idea of becoming free of that, like, that's associated with the accuser, and the accuser, like, it's only the Lucifer of Cagliari in Italy during the Arianist period, and he's an anti-Arianist, that they start misassociating phosphore, like the Venus morning star, with this name Lucifer, which is the Latinization of the Greek. And so then they have a proper title. So Lucifer is introduced because of drama going on in the Catholic Church, right? Which has nothing to do with Shaitan. So all of those earlier ideas, I mean, a lot of those earlier traditions are that apotheosis is achieved by escaping Yaldabaoth, right? That's not just a Mormon thing. That's like Manichaeanism too.
I guess it gets back to there's what, like they say, how many 8 or 12 different basic archetype stories anyway? Like, it's very difficult to make a new narrative of anything.
True that. I feel like there's really like 3. There's like man versus man, man versus the world, man versus himself, right? That's kind of...
Yeah, that's probably why I'm saying 8 to 12. I think I've seen it done both ways.
Yeah.
Would man versus AI count as man versus the world at this point?
Maybe. Or himself, you know?
I mean, we track those stories back to, some 70s stuff, but, I guess Terminator is where it really starts entering the mainstream for that storyline. But it's not really a new storyline, is it? So it's just a new flavor.
No, yeah. D.F. Jones and Doc Smith, like we were talking about earlier, D.F. Jones did Colossus, the Forbin Project. And I think that's pretty, like, poignant, that idea of building an AI super machine. And then the Soviet Union has one too. And then they start talking and they're like, what were you built for? Wait, to stop wars? Me too. What the heck? And then they...
You were saying like how weird it was that these animated sci-fi movies didn't take off as much as maybe they should. And I think that also between the 90s or even the early 2000s and now, like mid 2020s, the culture maturity around animation is advanced to the point where we can actually handle violence without it having to be heavy metal. Like during the 2000s, right? It was either you were making Fritz the Cat in heavy metal that was like going to be over the top and nipples blasting all over the place, or you were making Disney, and there really was not a huge gap in between those for like hard PG-13 Terminator style animation. But if someone were to make Treasure Planet today as an animation, or Titan AE today as an animation, and they had the flexibility to reach into that like PG-13 plus category, I feel that like all these stories would do phenomenally better. And that might have been part of the death knell to some of these, was just neutering it too much.
Yeah. Unfortunately though, like I don't feel like Titan AE would I feel like Titan AE was perfect, and I don't think it would have benefited from being more like obscene or gratuitous or in any way.
Or just nipples and blood. That's all we're talking about.
Yeah, I just feel like that particular movie didn't need it. And so there was a problem maybe just with the audience in general, where you have a saturation of so much that's out there that you can watch. And if you want sci-fi, there are so many sci-fis that are so adult, like The Matrix and everything else like that. Why would you bother with a kid's sci-fi or something that could be watched by everybody? But there's something about that universal appeal and the fact that if you show a kid a movie, it's formative, right? And I feel like Titan AE is one of those movies which is very formative in the way that it helps you understand alchemy, the way the world works, cosmogenesis, man's place in making worlds. I think that's pretty cool. I wish more kids got to see it.
I'm also thinking just how space is in this movie. The plan was to have it be 70% old stuff, 30% new stuff. So by the year 2002, I mean, every kid has been like, just like, I think most kids have a like NASA's awesome phase, somewhere in the single digits. So you're thinking of space as what at least, NASA is going to say space is.
Absolutely.
And this gives you such a weird, other, now they're in the ether, and well, how does gravity work? But there's still a black hole. When does the air stop when you fall off the ship? Questions like these, it could be impressionistic and cool. speaking of the PG-13 vibe, we just did Spirited Away, where a lot of anime was hitting that space. That one, of course, isn't sci-fi, but there are some sci-fis that do that as well. Attack on Titan would be a pretty successful one. That
anything from the East was allowed. But that's also because people in Japan are like 80. You know what I mean? Like, there's a bunch of people who still watch cartoons who used to watch Tekkaman.
Oh yeah, my father-in-law will go down in the morning. He's often on his phone reading manga on on an app.
Yeah, so. Japanese people are just exceptionally based people, so it's just harder for us to compare.
But manga and anime is for all ages. I just watched Perfect Blue, which is definitely not for kids, without being gratuitous, without being heavy metal. Although I think it does have a nip shot, but it's a fast one.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of proves the point too that like culturally, they were already receptive to cartoons that didn't have to be overly all audiences.
They have a smaller audience. They can saturate their audience and then also find other audiences around the world. So they're able to find that audience wherever that audience exists. And that's already more than people that are in Japan alone. So they're usually content in that sense. Plus, the paying of artists and anybody in Japan is pretty much been stable for a long time. So it's cheaper to do that, to make art in Japan, like the video games.
Yeah, now when you consider the hours they're working, though, you get that paycheck, but now you're working 16-hour days to hit that deadline. So
yeah, that's true. That is true. But there is a reason why anime and video games, like there's a quality and a quantity of them that come out of Japan, which is such a small country. It's incredible.
This is the point, Treasure Planet being the point where Disney proper is fully tripping and falling on its face. And again, I don't think it's the quality of this movie. That's not the problem here. But
yeah, it's amazing quality.
Within 3 years, they're basically going, once Iger takes over from Eisner, he's, bowing down to Steve Jobs saying, name your price, because we can't survive without Pixar at that point, because this is the start of Disney getting that, like, oh, we can't make a successful movie. If you look at their top movies for 2000, 2001, 2002, it's like, Dinosaur and just stuff where you're like, what, really?
They're cursed. Yeah, but this movie, it's like it's
40 million less.
Well, I don't know, because Treasure Planet, it's like Tron, like it's a new idea, it's a bright idea. Again, you're right, like it's in a time that's kind of scary because people are so obsessed with their NASA belief of the universe at this point, and these kids, it's a kids movie, and kids are the ones who are being beaten over the head with Scholastic magazine ever since the Columbia shuttle explosion. So of course they're going to continue to think that this is real, and it's going to ruin their ability to be interested in metaphysics and ether. So maybe there should have been something that was clearer about it being metaspace or something like that. But I think it's one of the most original Disney movies at its time, right? And it's sad when the answer is, oh, never be original, never do anything that's outside of the box or creative, right?
Well, it was still based on Treasure Island, so it was original to the extent that they've based it upon like a long pre-existing, I guess I can call it IP, but like the archetypes have been established. The actual characters that we even see are very like one for one in ways that I don't think Disney has reached in previous movies. Because even the ones where they're like directly based, Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, Jungle Book, all those were always like had that Disney twist, right? It was never like just like the story.
And that's how they got away with it. They're like, look, we can make it like different because it's so identical that they're able to make it so different. And they were like, yeah, okay, that'll be fine because it is still that character, and that perfect inversion process makes this movie. It's something that I think is also more timeless than the other Disney movies. I don't know if I care as much to watch.
In a way, I don't know. I think that might be up for debate just because the next thought that I had was that in this like late 90s, early 2000s, another very strong archetype / trope was this like steampunky future retro feel. And I do think that they did a very great job of not letting this get into like the steampunk territory.
Yeah, it's not steampunk, it's pirate punk. It's like
it's pirate punk, but
it is a close cousin.
It feels like it came from a very specific time period.
Punk genre, punk is like cyberpunk, atom punk, solar punk, diesel punk. All these things were amazing worlds that we could look. I mean, this is Howl's Moving Castle. All of the anime was doing the same thing. So I think it's, again, Disney trying to do things. They're like, look, if the Japanese can do it, that's a cool thing. If they're like, I want to be creative, I want to be an artist, and Disney tries to do something. I mean, because your next thing you're saying is the dinosaur, and that's a great example of where Disney's trying to play it safe, like weirdly safe, and it's boring because of that. It's not a good. And Dinosaur is a terrible ripoff of Land Before Time.
This is interesting. I just brought up a list of 1995 to 2024, which is the top grossing movie that the Disney Corporation put out in each year. Dinosaur is the only Disney animated movie to make the list. Everything else is Pixar or Marvel or something else. Even Frozen's on the list. When did Frozen come out? 2014.
To be fair,
Guardians knocks it out of the park.
And we're not talking about the good dinosaur. We're talking about Dinosaur, like the kind of photorealistic dinosaurs.
Yeah, not the sitcom. Yeah, not the sitcom.
Yeah.
Sitcom's great.
So no, yeah, it was amazing. But I think it's a tragedy that that would be the movie that is such a popular movie, because it's such a horrible ripoff of Land Before Time, and they didn't get any kind of permission for it. Also, Land Before Time is about, the Mormon.
When you say popular, though,
the Mormon after they kill Joseph Smith and they have to go across the desert, right? Land Before Time is about that. That's clearly what Don Bluth is doing.
That top 10 list, though, that was gross, right? And are we directly equating like gross ticket sales with it being popular? Because a little voice in the back of my head says, well, Dinosaur being fully 3D animated and almost no real lip syncing required probably meant they could also go to market way faster in different languages and appeal to a much wider audience than if you were to try and like resync the hand done animations with the actual, like mouth lip sync action. I don't know. I'm trying to find a rationale behind why Dinosaur had outperformed every other Disney animation.
It was also, I think, the first movie that had like real life backgrounds or something that were being affected by the CGI. So it was it was a technical achievement.
It was big time.
Yeah, but Treasure Planet's definitely a technical achievement that is more entertaining. Dinosaur is kind of a drag if I remember correctly. Now this, what I'm looking at is also like listing like live action things too. So 2002, the year of Treasure Planet, Signs is actually the top movie for Disney that year. So, and The Sixth Sense was 3 years earlier. Wow, it's crazy how much stock Shyamalan used to have.
Wow, so the Alien movie. It's been a long time since I saw Signs. I hate M. Night Shyamalan. I don't really like his movies.
Oh, don't say that, man. I honestly, I've loved pretty much every movie, even going back to Devil, the one that's inside the elevator. Like I love all of those.
Well, I fell off the wagon after The Village, which I didn't hate. I mean, the twist was stupid and it didn't need it, but otherwise I remember The Village. But after that, I just never watched another one of his movies.
My favorite one is a lot of people's most hated, which was Lady in the Water, that has Paul Giamatti living in that weird condo with all the people, and the guy's got like the huge arm, and that, like, to me, that is truly a masterpiece for rubes like myself. Like it's my version of what like a truly deep movie is, even though I know it's very surface level.
I think Last Airbender's more hated than that one.
It's pretty. What have they done? I don't know. My dad ruined it for me. I was like 9 or 10 years old. Sixth Sense was coming out, and everyone's like, the greatest movie of all time, the most genius, inventive producer, and blah, blah, blah. And my dad and I, he's like, all right, we should watch this stupid thing. We put it on, and as we're like watching it, Bruce Willis comes on. Dad's like, what do you bet this guy's dead? Right? Like the kid's just talking to him. Yeah, I was like, yeah, I guess so. And then it's like, yeah, it's pretty obvious now. And then he finally says, like, all right, we get it. And then that was kind of the end of me ever liking any of his movies.
Oh. That's the problem of depending that much on a twist, unfortunately. I saw that opening night. I wasn't smart enough to get it straight away, so I had the proper Sixth Sense experience.
I feel like my dad might have seen that one before. That's the other thing. If you've seen enough reruns, it's probably like he probably picked up on whatever he got it from, because he probably saw some 70s movie or something, or read some comic book that was from or something. And it's like, okay,
you can do that with a lot of
it's new
movies.
For a kid. Yeah.
Like the original Scream, you could do that with too. You could be like, oh, that's the murderer. And it kind of like ruins a lot of it.
But that's like, yeah, kids now, you can't show them Star Wars, like, because they're like, oh, Luke, I'm your father. And then they see like, oh, that's what that means. Because like the whole time they know.
Spoilers. Well, yeah, back when Terminator 2 is released, it's like in the TV commercials, it's in the trailer that Arnold's going to be good this time, which, you know, it's done well in the movie when you see the turn, but no one was surprised by it because of how pervasive the media was.
They're like, but you had to do that because otherwise I couldn't have been like, Mom, the Terminator's going to be good this time. I promise. They promised. Look.
He's only shooting him in the kneecaps.
I swear he doesn't kill anybody. He doesn't kill anybody. I've literally had this conversation with someone's mom recently for the kid.
He doesn't kill anyone, but the T-1000.
Don't tell anybody. Don't tell. Oh,
Dabs
I remember
milk drinkers through the throat.
I don't want to curse, but I remember I was like, Freddy Got Fingered came out, and my mom didn't know any better, and she's gonna take my brother and I to see it. And then the person who was selling the tickets, and I was like 10 or 11, he's like, I don't know if you want to take your kids to see this movie, ma'am. And I just started like letting loose on this guy at like 11 years old. You need to shut the fuck up. Just like just pour this, and he just like was freaking out, and he's just like scared of this little kid. But then we didn't get to see that movie until the next day with somebody else.
Oh well,
yeah.
I like that movie. It's a good absurdist comedy. Every joke is taken 8 minutes past where it ever should have been, which I think is genius.
Absolutely, it's one of the greatest absurdist comedies of our generation. It's weirdly underrated. It's so like it depicts society so clearly. I feel like that's like the answer to why people didn't get Treasure Planet, because that's who they are, you know.
They're too busy looking for Tom Green. Yeah, I mean, it was peak Tom Green, right? When
standing around in the street wearing the flesh of a bear. That's the people that didn't go to see Treasure Planet.
I mean, that itself is just another Star Wars reference, is it not?
Probably, but that is a thing. You know, this is Disney trying to home grow the boys market. This in Atlantis. Not doing well, and yeah, I mean, within 10 years, they're just gonna, you know, pony up the cash to do that instead, and go for the existing options. So now we have, go ahead, because I forgot the word I was about to say.
Well, so they were leaning really hard into like appealing to like the bad boys, because they start this one out, and the protagonist, they basically show him like trespassing, he's skateboarding, but it's like a space skateboard. He's got an earring. He breaks his probation, because even after he gets caught, it's like he was already on probation for sneaking into these places. And so like he definitely is sort of the black sheep in a way. And it's got that Disney proxy element too, where the dad is missing, and he's got like a mom that is so, you know, overworked at her job that he's kind of has that same orphan backstory that a lot of the Disney
scoundrel street rat.
Yeah. Yep, he's got that classic archetype, and that is Disney really trying to lean hard into like, please, like our bad boy, like relate to our bad boy.
Well, it's kind of interesting since we've already been talking Star Trek. 2009 Star Trek, not Disney, but that's Paramount, right? But it kind of takes the same tact towards their version of Jim Kirk in there, where in the original TV show, he's kind of a button up by the rules guy. He becomes a little looser in the movies, but the 2009 movie is like this, you know, this bad boy street rat again. You know, they're trying to recast him
James
that
Dean,
way.
yeah.
yeah. Which
he does to be like, you know, to reinterpret. He likes to Solomon reinterpret the Prime Directive. That's kind of the whole goal with Kirk's character, is that he's whatever the Prime Directive is probably not the Tao of the Prime Directive. So we have to probably reinterpret it in some way. And I think that's
in the main universe, he doesn't really become a rebel till he hits his 50s, you know, whereas they got to do it from the get-go in the Kelvinverse.
That's true, yeah.
And I'm thinking that's almost the same character as we start off with Treasure Planet, with Dad's gone. Maybe Mom's not overworked in the Trek movie, but we don't see Mom after the first scene, you know? And he's kind of shown to be more of an orphan type, so he's got to take on, you know, his
I like
space
to
man.
imagine everyone in Star Trek are overworked secretly. I like to think of it like it's really Starship Troopers, and they like that. They're just the propaganda is so good that you keep missing it. You know.
Oh, the shows you're watching is propaganda. That's also why I like for the Star Wars idea that you're always watching the rebel propaganda when you watch the movies.
Clearly, they kidnap kids, dude.
Right?
It's crazy. Yeah,
You can't have space communism without space communist propaganda.
Star Wars isn't space communism. Star Wars is like Jesuit, like liberation.
Star Trek would be the
Star Trek is fascism. It's straight up military fascism. You have space utopia. It's Starship Troopers, but more effectively illustrated because you can't tell that it's. I mean, it's working. It's like it's more scary than 1984 or Brave New World because it's working, and the people are eager to put on bell bottoms and be part of the Navy, and they want to boldly know.
Right? There's no currency.
You got really watch Deep Space Nine. I mean, because how are you going to deal with the Ferengi without currency? Like it exists. There's a lot to that. Also, they just aren't supposed to in their own society. They have kind of a central planning of who gets what. Plus, they have defeated scarcity in so many levels. It doesn't really matter.
Sounds like space communism in so many
But then
words.
you fly out to mining colonies where everyone is living in
like
sheer,
I always wonder, what if you just hung out next to the
Space
materializer or whatever the thing was called? I'm outing myself here. But the little space materializer that would just like make food, could you just sit there and just hit that button all day, or would someone
the replicator needs the theory is a replicator uses your waste, right? It's
right. So if you just sat there and you were just like hitting the button over and over again, you're like, I'm gonna feast. They're like, whoa, stop eating everybody's poop, guy. Like, leave some food for the rest of us.
Well, in Voyager, they do refer to replicator rations, which is why they have to go and eat Neelix's terrible actual food. Although that's the better food. That's the real food. That's not the weird reconstituted space food.
Yeah, that's what we.
There's also does the transporter kill you every time you use it? You know.
Yeah. Or it should. I mean, is it do it by law? Because otherwise it would be killing people that could vote or something. Like there'd be too many versions of people. Right.
Oh yeah. If you just transport a few times, you get 5 more votes. Yeah. You're a new person.
Yeah. There's a lot of, and these are obviously issues that they think have happened by that point in Star Trek. Because we've already gone through the eugenics war and everything else by that point. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah. Star Wars just steals your kids, like the Jedi are just, they're kidnappers. It's crazy.
Right, you need a wizard, a space wizard to do.
Yeah, but it's like Monarch programming. You know what I mean? This is the thing.
Oh yeah, because like the Jedi, grab them when they're young, right? That's the whole thing in Phantom Menace, where Jake Lloyd is 10 years old, and they're like, he's already too old.
Yeah, and then they're shocked when he ends up. They're like, wait, Anakin has like post-traumatic stress disorder from being ripped from his mother, and now he's gonna destroy the universe. Yeah,
he's gonna murder us all.
Whose fault is that? Weird Jedi.
I'm sure I've seen this comparison elsewhere, but Star Wars always reminds me of like an Israel-Palestine. And obviously, the rebel force is Palestine in this case. But it's just that like it feels weird completely siding with either of the sides or with condemning either of the sides, just like on an absolute sense. You know what I mean?
I mean, then you Luke Skywalker and just move off to a space island where no one's going to bother you for 20 years.
I mean, it sounds a little bit like the Promised Land.
Star Wars, it's supposed to be like about Cambodia and things like that. So it's where you have the Trade Alliance, the Techno Commission, you've got the United States and Canada and Russia and all these things, and Lockheed and whatever, and they're all fighting a proxy war, right? And that proxy war is making a bunch of money for the banking system, right? I think it's that's the major analogy.
Yeah, I think Lucas specifically said in an interview, the Ewoks are the Viet Cong.
Yeah. Well, he used the recordings of the Hmong, the Hmong in Cambodia and China. So after the CIA had worked with the Hmong and then they abandoned them and they were being genocided by the PRC and they had to be brought into the Midwest and California, Minnesota, and all these places, they have a lot of Hmong refugees. They recorded a lady telling a bunch of stories in her own language, and they use that for the Ewok voices, or at least for the original. Yeah, like Star Wars is weirdly racist too. Yeah.
Go watch the Phantom Menace again.
Well, but it's not necessarily racist. It's about racism because it's at a point where it's like you have to understand people used to look at each other like they were aliens, and that you'd have to explain that to a kid. I think that's how you'd explain racism is Star Wars.
Use Jar Jar Binks to explain racism.
He kind of is the unsung hero of that movie, maybe in his own right, maybe not to the viewer, but he advances in such a way that he almost has like a Machiavellian tactics where he perfectly acts like this complete jackass, but then somehow becomes like a highly ranked delegate within their entire political system, right? He ends up with more political capital than almost any other character that you see.
He gives a motion that destroys their entire society. And the second one is only seen he's seconding the motion or whatever, and that causes what the
which kind of feels like more political commentary in a way.
Yeah, well, that's I mean, what for the whole conspiracy thing, a lot of times I'm like, no, it's not the master plan that we don't see. It's someone doing something stupid and trying like hell to cover it up. Is I think the more common, reality behind.
Well, man,
a lot of.
I always screw this one up a little bit, but it's based on I think Arthur C. Clarke's law, where it's like any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. There's a version of that is any sufficiently advanced malice or incompetence is indistinguishable from malice. And I kind of like to live by that one, so that even if you blame it on, oops, I crapped the bed just because I didn't know what I was doing, it's the same thing as like, I did it on purpose, mwahaha, because you can't really ever prove either of those two.
Well, you sound smarter later if you say you did it on purpose, right? When you were just improvising and jury rigging everything. Yeah, I meant to do that. Of course, it's a master plan. What do you think?
I think it's interesting that Ron Clements, again, these guys are both Catholic. Ron Clements is.
I checked the other fella, and he was at least went to a Catholic school.
Yeah, which it's like mercury. When they get in your teeth, it hooks you young. Ain't that right, Thomas? But the idea of Peter Pan, Aristocats, Lady the Tramp being all of his apprenticeship stuff, and that he did the Great Mouse Detective is nuts. Because to do the Great Mouse Detective, which is wasn't that kind of a failure? Is that correct? I feel like the Great Mouse Detective
not to the degree of this one, but it was not a runaway success or anything. No, I can have a look at what the box office.
Go figure. A Victorian mouse didn't end up like taking the world by storm.
I guess he did like 38 million on a 14 budget, which is it doubles. That's better than not losing money.
A lot better than losing millions, tens of millions of dollars. Yes.
How did Fievel do though? Because Fievel was a way more relatable mouse, and that one wasn't Disney though.
Second one didn't do so well.
Fievel did amazing. Fievel was one of those things where your aunt and your cousin and everyone bought you like everything. They went to a grocery store, they bought you a copy. I had like 9 copies of American Tail from different like family members that were like, I saw this at the store, right? Like I think they made, so it looks like for a $9 million budget, they made 84 million at the box office. There you go.
See, yeah, we're killing it.
That's not even box office is not even counting the cassette tapes. They must have probably made triple that, I would imagine, off the cassettes. Like that's crazy.
That was my little kid disappointment movie. Not that it's bad or anything, but my parents wouldn't take me to see it, and they gave me the book instead to read. And not
which one? Mein Kampf?
American Tail. Mein Kampf. They gave me that to read.
They're related. They're related. They're related. That's the thing that scares me. I mean, so I watched that second movie, American Tail, Fievel Goes West. And my God, Life is Beautiful, right? I mean, it's just internment camps. That's just the craziest movie they could have made. Again, I don't think they cared if people liked it. They were doing that for themselves. That movie is...
And it was profitable, but definitely not a smash. It looks like, 16.5 million budget and then 22 million box office.
That's one of the darkest series possible. You start out with a mouse who loses his family in the pogrom and is drowning on a boat. And then he gets to New York, right? Like what? It's like it only gets worse. It's crazy. It's crazy.
New York, hell of a town. Oh yeah, you mentioned Lit earlier as Titan AE. This one has the Goo Goo Dolls, which that causes kind of a twitch in me. I worked for a couple of years at the Warner Brothers Studios store in the late '90s, and that song Iris was just played every 15 minutes for 2 years. So I hear the Goo Goo Dolls, and I'm gonna twitch a little bit. So yeah, I guess it's just like putting the it's been a long time into Enterprise, right? That's just everyone thought that was the rock that would last forever. I don't know.
Basically, I mean, I think that or maybe I kind of feel like they kill things off on purpose. They're like, well, we'll just do 4 of them at once, And then that way people will be sick of it, and we'll get to stop doing that for a while. Because after the Challenger and things like there's a dissipation of space from public culture. Obviously, a lot of things were sci-fi based because people loved sci-fi. So all of a sudden, just sci-fi quality went down, and it was oversaturated. And I feel like they do that. I can't be right. It might be that they just really want to make money, and they just put that many sequels out at once, and they're not thinking about it. But it seems like a conspiracy, right? They're just like, oh, let's just destroy sci-fi.
Well, there was another conspiracy inside of the Treasure Planet that I thought was interesting, and it reminded me of that movie Moonfall, which was like a weird collaboration between US and China, but the premise was that the moon is artificial, and then it was just this huge construction that was like basically all mechanical. And that kind of is exactly what Treasure Planet is too. And it kind of goes into the concept of not just like hollow planets, but completely artificial. And there's even a scene in Treasure Planet when he's pointing up to what looks like a crescent moon, but then as the camera zooms into this moon, you see it's really just like a huge dock of all these different spaceships, and they all just happen to be sort of in that configuration and hitting the light just this very way. But again, like that, it almost felt like ahead of its time, where it was talking about metaphysical space and interdimensional realities as opposed to just like the mundane space. And this was another version of, are they talking about like our moon might be artificial and just like a collection of different ships? Or was that part of like the metaphysical space area? Was it just like a funny little visual nod? Because it almost felt, and I don't believe in like the soft disclosure through Disney movies to that kind of level, but it does seem to.
It does feel like this is the real space. They're like, no, space is fake. This is real. Yeah, I know.
I kind of got that feeling from this.
Yeah, I like to follow that vibe. I'm looking for. I'm currently doing another podcast on the show Space 1999. So this distracted me a lot while watching. Are you getting my screen here?
Yeah.
That's Maya from Space 1999, 1976, and I thought the captain looked an awful lot like Maya in our movie today.
Does this actually take place in 1999? Is that the reason for the name?
Yeah. Well, here, that's the plot of the show is that nuclear waste on the far side of the moon, like we're storing our nuclear waste, and it explodes and sends the moon careening out of Earth orbit and through the universe. So that one also asks you to do a lot of crazy sort of crazy. You have to assume like, oh, the moon can do that, and it can travel to other solar systems by going through space warps and stuff. So like this movie, there's an awful lot of things you have to accept to even watch it, But so, and then they have this captain that looks like the character from season 2 of Space 1999, which that might just be a visual cue. Someone just thought she looked cool, and they just kind of repeated it here. So
there's something so cool about going through what people like, this idea of a new reality. And so the way that they're sailing through luminary realms and everything, and that's made up, I think that is so much better than anything that they could have done by trying to make it look like they're in rocket ships, and that's the thing. It's definitely like a more beautiful movie for it, but I don't see how anyone's ever going to relate to it if the entire world around it is saying that that's, fantasy. Like, that's the thing that they're saying. This is a fantasy world instead of a science fiction world.
Well, that's how this movie even starts, is that this whole world is a fantasy to this little kid, and he's reading it in this book about Treasure Planet, and then he kind of ends up doing the thing that was in the book, which also, I don't know how recently you've seen it, Andreas, but there was like, when the kid was actually reading the book in the beginning of the movie, the mom keeps coming in, and it's like, put that book away, put that book away. But when you actually see him reading the book, he's not even reading. It's basically a Netflix tablet that has like 3D projection.
Book.
And it was, it's like a digital pop-up book. But I was just thinking like, man, is he stupid? Is that why he's like that, the street rat? Is it just because he's literally doesn't know how to read or write? Because in the future, Netflix just pumps everything through your iPad and you don't have a reason to actually read any sort of characters?
I mean, doesn't it later on, he's able to help with the map and stuff, and I feel like he might know how to read. But I don't know, yeah, maybe that's kind of the point, is he doesn't need to know how to read in the future, because everything is just, magic, like technology gets to that point.
the big map reveal, it's like, oh, it's the hologram that takes over the room, which is extremely cool looking, but you can do that and be illiterate, I guess.
Right.
You wonder if does Treasure Planet ever have like brownouts? Does anyone in that universe have brownouts, or is that something they've completely advanced beyond?
They're running on crystal technology.
Yeah, I think there is sort of an implied Kardashev scale thing here, right? Where you're able to like harness all the energy of your world, and that energy is being used by everyone, and that's why they're just coming and going all the time, right?
We see all the solar sails and things, so I guess they could be solar powered.
This feels like a Disneyfied and a happier version of Pirates of Blackwater, right? There's a way to make it so that people will accept it, but there already is a show that's kind of a sci-fi pirate show that is about like a pirate boy who's kind of a blonde but dark, character, right? You guys remember Pirates of Blackwater? Is it Darkwater?
I think it was Darkwater. Yeah, I was trying to remember. There was a cartoon that had pirates in dark, and I mostly remember because of the font was so damn iconic.
Yeah, absolutely. Pirates of Darkwater is incredible. And it's about a boy who loses his father, and he ends up with a very Long John Silver character, and they have like weird mutant creatures. Here, check out this for a second. Look at this weird alien bird with a monkey head. You know what I mean? So
I do remember this.
Yeah.
Although this one always felt like the thing that was on when nothing else was on. It was like, oh, all right.
That's an underrated show. I mean, it's too dark. It's too dark for like kids, I think. And so I feel like Treasure Planet.
It's hard to make pirates like kid friendly and still do pirates right, I think. Like there's nothing really kid friendly about being a pirate just on its surface even.
Well, there are
there's only
rules.
21 episodes only, not so many.
Yeah, any good show gets canceled, like I said. But I
have
think
you
also
ever heard of the theory that pirates were an extension of Knights Templar, and that how much credit do you give this?
So it's not exactly true. What it is that the pirate's flag is not a pirate's flag. Pirates would use your flag if you're trying to hide. And why would I tell you, hey, I'm a pirate? So you have the Jolly Roger flag, which is the banking ship for the Knights Templar. And so you have this big skull and crossbones that says, do not come near our boat. We will kill you. We have a lot of money on our boat. We have investments. So eventually you've got pirates using the Jolly Roger flag because they're pretending to be these commercial banking ships, etc. They're trying, but not all the time. And for the most part, pirates were working, doing smuggling, like, hey, we have these tariffs. If we go through here, if you hide things, all of a sudden pirating and all that stuff emerges under that. But really, again, it's the Barbary coast and the Berbers and the Barbary wars. And you see all of these different chieftains emerge, people that have their own islands. They have millions of dollars in the 1700s. They have gold. They have everything they need for running essentially a small kingdom on their little island. And there's hundreds or maybe 1,000 of these guys. And then by the 19th century, we have the Barbary Wars, where after the United States kind of takes over, the American colonies, the first of the American colonies, it really pushes more towards naval pursuits than it does going west. It's like, yeah, we'll give you land if you go west and kill Indians for us. But what we want to do with our money is go take over the seas so that the British and the Dutch aren't controlling that trade route anymore, right? And so we just start killing and taking over all of those islands, all of those pirate islands, and forcing them into working for us too, and creating little Commonwealth kingdoms. But we're doing that against England. And so England does that, takes over British Honduras and the Caribbean. And we see more of that, right? You see the British in the Bahamas and Bermuda. And so there's just a war that goes on, right? That's, yeah. I think we're the Knights Templar in that scenario. The United States is.
And I guess the implication is that you don't really have pirates without having taxes. And that the pirates in this movie, it sort of is our protagonist in a way, because they're going to go and they're going to take this treasure theoretically, and they're just going to take that all for themselves. They didn't talk at any point about paying anyone taxes or giving anyone tariffs or anyone their cut in any of this. And I wondered too, does this translate at all into the search for like a more like metaphysical gold? Like if you're a pirate and you want to steal treasure, and that treasure is enlightenment, Are you avoiding taxes in some way? Are you having to like break any sort of treaties by doing this?
I didn't have any specific take, but maybe one of you guys does, which just the design of the planet itself, kind of that, double ring, looks a bit like an atom. And I was sitting there trying to work out if there was that being the treasure, if that has some, metaphysical connotation worth thinking about. It's not really like Saturn's ring, so I guess that doesn't factor in well, but
and then it's also rigged to just explode if anyone tries to take it, even if the guy that owns it is completely dead, which feels like there's a way deeper message to that.
I feel like you look at pictures of space from actual phones and things. You see they're like luminaries, and you see how like the light refracts and it looks like this crazy thing. I feel like they were trying to also make it look more like something you would actually see. They're like, this is what people see from the Earth. This is not anything influenced by NASA satellite imagery, right? This is all based on what you would normally experience on Earth if you use a telescope, right? Which is different. You don't see the same things as we're told we see.
I mean, if that goes to say that what was happening does reflect enlightenment, and that treasure planet exploding kind of represents someone reached enlightenment. Maybe it wasn't our protagonist in this particular movie because it exploded and he didn't get a piece of it. But so maybe every time you see like a star, or anytime a star explodes somewhere in the universe, that represents someone has reached true enlightenment.
Every time a star explodes, a person achieves enlightenment.
Well, and I guess I would say when the sun explodes and consumes all of us, that's just because one person.
That's what I'll say. Only one of us. Enlightenment has to be different for everyone. So only one star per person. One person per star, I should say.
I mean, that could kind of be the sun god, right? That is Jesus. That's him coming back to Earth as the sun exploding.
Everybody being a star, right? You're seeing, yeah. You might be a reflection of a star. The idea that space and arrangements, that all of, you're seeing yourself. You're seeing.
It's very Crowleyan.
Ancient light up there. Yeah.
You start fantastic caught on that basic precipice. Somebody's precept. Somebody must have done that already. The second coming is when the sun explodes and we all die.
What about his alchemical metamorphosis friend that like transforms into all kinds of weird things?
Morph,
right?
Which I kind of, again, if I was watching it in a one-track mind, this is all Mormonism. Morph is the freaking salamander / frog that kind of transmutes between forms within Mormon theology,
The salamander letter is not a real thing. Theoretically, I don't know. It'd be cool if maybe Mark Hoffman is maybe the whole lie about Mark Hoffman is that Mark Hoffman's lie is a lie.
Dude, but that is literally one of the theories that Heidi Love, shout out to Monthly Mormon Monday. But one of the things that she will not drop is that the salamander letters were real, but that it was basically pitched as a big hoax in order to get them like this weight off their shoulders. Like, man, this Mormon. The salamander papers are going to make us look kind of silly if we don't sort of like release. Well,
let's interview Mark Hoffman. He's still alive, right? Like the story goes that he murdered a bunch of people from the church who were and who were trying to buy the letters and all these things from him, because all of them got more and more interested and they wanted to buy more and more stuff. And they're like, look, I need to get everything you have. And he couldn't keep up with the demand. And all of a sudden he killed the guy in a fake car accident. And so he's been arrested, right? So you can go find him. We could interview him and see what he says. I'm sure he would tell people if he he maybe lies and says, or it's true that he believes the salamander letters are real. If he said that, but I don't think he does. I think do you think the church are paying him to be in jail to say that he faked the salamander letters?
That's part of the theory. Yeah,
that's a lot. That's a lot for me. The idea that this guy is in jail right now for the church, pretending to be the bad guy in exchange for what? I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Don't think
that happened with the what's the Sin Eater guy? The guy that got John McTiernan into federal prison for a while. That lawyer. Anyway,
I mean, if you were convinced that was your calling, going to jail for life seems like nothing compared to
hide a letter from Joseph Smith from the public that isn't going to be hidden because people have already seen it. So then all of a sudden it's on the public and you're just going to discredit it. So your whole life is just, it just doesn't seem necessary. You would do it so many better ways than that. There's a better way to make the salamander letter look absurd.
That it's a fair point, but also Betamax was better than VHS. But sometimes the market doesn't go with what's better. The market goes with what's the most convenient at the time.
Well, I don't know. I don't think that the salamander letter is real, but it would be cool. I remember thinking it would be a really cool idea because the idea that there's like this weird Newtian gecko character. I mean, sure, but there's already enough like metamorphosis stuff in Mormonism, right? Like there's already weird enough stuff. And for the most part, the thing is you have to be able to shake the hands of a spirit or a demon, right? Because otherwise you don't know if it's real. It's like a hologram. So there's already like tests there that you have to see if something is corporeal and everything like that.
Anthony Pellicano is the guy I was talking about where pretty clearly was, basically when producers or stars had a problem in Hollywood, they go to him and just be like, can you do anything about it? Be like, yeah. He finally went to prison for 30 months, came out, and he's just been set up since and without a clear form of income. So that, he's known as a sin eater. He ate Hollywood sins, and now they're, as an old fart, keeping him, comfortable, I guess.
Yeah,
so maybe that's what's happening with Hoffman.
That would make sense. Except Hoffman is like convicted, life in prison, never gonna leave prison. In like a I
believe they broke his hand too. Whatever hand he used to like do the transcription, whatever, like that was broken while he was in jail as like allegedly as a message.
Yeah. So I'm just saying.
I'm coming in with a lighter story, I guess. Then.
Well, I mean, it could be that it's real, I guess. I mean, but I don't know. I'd love to hear him say that. I'd love to hear him be like, no, seriously, dude. Like, I was really on the up and up trying to do this stuff. Well, I mean, it looks like he's just trying to sell forgeries. Like, because all he was doing, like, if you found this stuff and did this stuff and you were one of these LDS guys, most of them are doing this for the church for almost free. And here's a guy who's like, I'm selling my weird rare copy, and I have hundreds of rare copies of things that only I have for $100,000, $250,000. To me, it's like similar to paying Michael Jackson or getting Michael Jackson to pay you if like he molested your kids. Like you wouldn't take the money. You'd want him to be in jail or dead. So I don't have a lot of credence for people that are just looking for money. And so this guy trying to get money for his forgeries, instead of just trying to get them checked out, investigated, and everything like that, another sign to me that it's conspicuous.
He wanted it too hard. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a little bit of a treasure hunter.
Yeah.
But less sci-fi.
There also is like legit gold, though, in the treasure planet. And so I feel like, the core of the world being gold, that kind of weird thing, it does look like the Titan AE thing. Right, like it does kind of seem like the world maker.
If you had to put the two up against each other, which one is walking away? Titan AE or Treasure Planet?
Which is the better movie?
Yeah, which is the better movie out of the two?
Titan AE by a landslide. Like Don Bluth is an incredible genius, and I think that movie is really, really deep and it works on so many levels. I loved that movie. As a kid, I loved it. Treasure Planet's really good, but I don't think it's I wouldn't compare it to Titan AE. I think.
I guess it's having one person in the driver's seat, where Treasure Planet, well, two directors, and a little bit more of a made by committee sort of feel. In this case, a pretty good committee, but it doesn't seem to have that like singular vision. Again, with all the muddling of space and pirates, and it's like 80 different people came in with like different ideas that just happen to fit together.
And yet there's a cameo montage of characters in Titan AE, like Janine Garofalo and Timon and Pumbaa, right? Like it's weird, like the kinds of interesting characters that make up that story. Matt Damon, Drew Barrymore. It's a weird cast. It works really well in its own way, I feel like.
Yeah, this is the I don't know if golden age is the right word, but yeah, this is just when all the, it's like Shrek fever. So every animated movie is just getting like, you're putting their title, you're putting their names above the title, Yeah. They didn't for Treasure Planet, but I know Shrek did,
Yeah. Shrek was, well, I mean, God, like that, I don't know. That's that nightmare of, that is like a water world. I cannot believe it worked out for them kind of thing. Just like.
I love the premise of Shrek, though, as being like the first real move at taking Disney off its pedestal. Like you don't own folktales. Everyone owns folktales. Here, we'll show you that we can still do it.
Okay. I mean, Land Before, well, maybe in CGI. I feel like Land Before Time and all a lot of those Bluth movies, like the Spielberg Bluth movies, did that. They were rather successful, and
they were doing the same thing that Disney was doing, but Shrek, in a way, like Disney for the longest time, as like for the first 40 years, they were basically the same way that he bought up land in Central Florida and turns that into Disney World. He's almost like buying up like folklore, metaphysical real estate, in that I'm gonna do every major Germanic folktale that you've ever heard of, and now when your kids think about Robin Hood, or your kids think about The Little Mermaid, or any of these like folktales, they're gonna have this Disney IP burn into the back of their brain,
right?
And that's what they're gonna relate to all this. And I think Shrek was one of the first big contenders that was like, oh, we can move into that space too. Like we can buy the plot of land right across the street. We'll open up a gas station across the street from your gas station. And Shrek was like, they did it very well in this case.
That's the other thing. Shrek was very massively successful till it wasn't. 2011 or so, or whenever they did the last one, they hit a wall, and that's the last we've heard of it. Might be partly because it's so tied to the actors.
Shrek 5 is coming out in the next 6 months.
Is that true?
There we go.
I've been seeing the poster. Yeah.
AI Chris Farley voice makes a comeback.
And Matt, I remember that. Mike Myers is like standing around with bright white hair, and everybody like this is a big revival for him, a renaissance.
It'll be interesting to see how that one hits then, because it's I guess mostly on nostalgia thing. Some people will be taking their kids to see Shrek. I guess hopefully they have maybe you have to wait a certain amount of time. That was the thing with the Ninja Turtles, where they did the late 2000s movie, but maybe like not quite enough time had passed. So
I call it weaponized nostalgia in a way.
Yes.
Shrek is interesting because there's like this Inception version of nostalgia, because the original Shrek is based on folktales, and you're like, oh, I like folktales, I like this. But now people watching Shrek 5, for example, there's a large portion of them that are going back because the Shrek series itself is the folktale and no longer like the proxy to the real folk. Like there's probably a lot of people that maybe have never even heard or even know that like Puss in Boots was like its actual own story. And to them, Puss in Boots is just the character from the Shrek movie. And then that'll just like keep repeating itself to a certain point where someone's like, oh yeah, Puss in Boots, the Shrek character, and having like no real recollection, and that for every one of the characters in Shrek.
Well, Shrek's William Steig, and William Steig from the New Yorker, and he did New Yorker comics from 1930 till the 60s or 70s, and he made Shrek, sold it in 88 or 89 to Spielberg. Spielberg had it for a few years, and then they started doing the Chris Farley version. Chris Farley finished recording it and died, and so then they started recording it again. Mike Myers gets the role, records it, and then finishes recording it and says, I should have done it in a Scottish accent, starts it over again. I mean, it's just crazy. Like it took literally like 8 or something years of paying people. And them like people lived and died over this movie. It's crazy to think about that with Shrek.
This is where some of like my rational thinking goes out the window, because when it comes to like this example in particular, right? Michael Myers and the amount of money that got wasted in 3 different voice overdubs, essentially by huge names, right?
But how important is William Steig to these people, though? Like, that's the thing. Like, William Steig's, like, vision, for whatever reason, they really wanted to put out his little kid's novel from 1980s, right? He wanted people to see that. That's weird to me. That's the same kind of thing with Treasure Planet. I guess if you're going to make a $100 million movie, you better be that obsessed with it. You better think that it has to be life-changing for everybody.
Yeah, you got to like Tommy Wiseau room it, you know what I mean? Like you like obsess over to, and I was going to say that I think that there's something that's legit magical about imbuing a movie with just straight up capital, or just having people working on it nonstop, even if it's just constantly be redoing it, because all that energy still goes somewhere. And if there's like some woo-woo version of redirecting it, so it doesn't just like go back out into the market and just become wasted money. But if you're making a movie and you're like, crap, we're going to have to re-record this 3 times. I want to imagine they've got like some wizard alchemist in the back that's like, I know how to redirect this and invest it into like the reception of the movie. So it's not just wasted financial capital.
Dude, everything about Shrek, Smash Mouth, like there's some dark magic in Shrek.
I am looking at how Treasure Planet, affected these guys, the directors of Treasure Planet's career. So after this, what they do The Princess and the Frog, which also does not that great. It basically ends Disney animation, although they did just make a ride out of it. And then it's after that's Moana. Huh.
Yeah.
So
Princess
and there's
and the
something
Frog,
in the works now.
Princess and the Frog is like the Mario movie. You know, it's just so, I don't know. It makes me so sad that they did that. It's just not the good Mario one from the 90s. I mean, like the empty one, like the one without a soul, the homunculus.
We will get to that one, but yeah.
Princess and the Frog is like, you gotta understand, like the Song of the South is such a pinnacly important movie where Disney refused to air it in the South if they refused to have the African American actor who played Uncle Remus go to the premieres there in Georgia and things like that. And they wanted him protected, right? And so you have to think, this is not just that they made a biracial film in the times when that was socially unacceptable. They put it in people's faces in ways that, today we associate that with the way Disney does things with the trans movement, right? They're like, Disney's constantly saying we're going to have a trans character in Star Wars and we're going to continue to like be open-minded and things like that. And a lot of the conservative public is super upset about it. So it's weird to me that Disney doesn't latch onto their roots and be like, Song of the South is this great movie that we're proud of that is about racial and socioeconomic disparity in the United States that needs to be, witnessed and needs to be remembered. And also, how awesome is Uncle Remus, this character who is teaching this kid all of these stories, right? Because these are Aconian Afro-mystical myths that exist. Like Brer Rabbit goes back to Africa. It's not from Georgia. It's not from Irish Americans, right? It goes back to Africa. So some of these are the earliest Afro-American stories that we have. And Disney just throws this away to create this ridiculous show made by white males, by the way, that isn't any better than Song of the South. In fact, it's so much worse. And it's all about racial stereotypes where this woman is working in small diner because there's like racial discrimination and blah, 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 blah. The entire thing is just constantly berating you with contemporaneous racial stereotypes. Whereas, this is ridiculous. Like a movie that doesn't let you, find your freedom. And it is a ripoff of Shrek because it's right after that logic of, oh yeah, we should totally have the princess become the frog, right? That's the vibe that we want to go for.
Oh, go ahead.
I would say I think Disney is a little bit ingenious in the way that they do this Princess and the Frog thing. The same way that I don't know if it's even joking anymore, but it's like the reason they release the Lion King, live action redo isn't because they're trying to milk that Lion King as much as they're trying to milk the old one. So you see the new one, you say, oh, that was crappy. I remember the old one being better. Let's go watch the old one. So now they sold 2 movie tickets instead of 1. I think that the Princess and the Frog, and not that Disney sandbags themselves, but they can say like, well, that was the last classic animation movie ever. Like that was your chance. If you want to see what Disney does when they do hand animation, there it is. There's the last one. But all they have to do is just come out with another one, and then that'll be the last one. This is the last one we're ever doing. It's just too expensive, and people don't like it enough. So they can always kind of keep that card up their sleeve of being like, oh my God, Disney just went back to doing traditional animation. We have to go and see this one. It'll kind of pull people the same way that I guess maybe Dinosaur pulled people, where it's like, oh my God, the first ray traced, fully 3D animated movie ever. Like we have to see it just for that alone.
Are they going to have the know-how to do that, though? Say, comes in 10 years. It's been what now?
Train an AI model. Boom, bang, bomb.
Well, Disney has studios outside of America. So, Extremely Goofy movie was done in France. The Atlantis 2 was done in Australia, right? They have teams in other places. There's, a Hong Kong team as well. So, as long as they don't have to rely on CalArts anymore, and they just use CalArts to, get the guy who has the idea, apparently. That's what their plan is now. But say what you want about Princess and the Frog. Friends on the Other Side is a jam. Probably the best
I
song.
honestly, like, aesthetically, I liked the movie a lot, especially like all the voodoo scenes with like the
Yeah.
black light and UV colors and stuff. Like, to me,
I've
that
got
probably
friends.
rivals the pink elephant sequence in the
Yeah.
original Dumbo visually. Like, it stands out that much.
Yeah, there's some good stuff. Admittedly, there are some things that are redeeming about it. I just think that they can't throw
Sometimes
away
form
Song of
over
the South. Don't throw away Song of the South. Song of the South is such an important movie. It's just so weird to me.
When you brought, and I agree with you, especially because Splash Mountain was my favorite ride.
Oh god,
here at Disney World. That's
I've
for
gone
Disney Frog.
I've gone on that all day long, multiple days.
Just for
and
the
been
story.
like, and just been like, can I just sit in here and not get back on the line? They're like, sure. And it's one of those days. And like, yeah, okay.
My wife hates that ride because she just doesn't like thrill rides. So after a drop, she's screaming at the animals. You kept saying everything was going to be okay, and it wasn't.
After 100 drops, it's different. I promise.
Oh, I loved it. I can still do it. We still got it in Tokyo.
Wow, there's a flex. Now I really like it to Japan.
What's the other big flex about like the cool rides that you have? Like, there's one where you go to
Back to the Future. Don't you have the Back to the Future 2 ride?
Yeah, it was gone in 2017, I think. We had it much longer,
tragedy.
but it is now gone.
Or no, Dumbo. Dumbo was one of the weird ones that you've got.
Oh no, we got Sinbad
or Yogi, or no, like freaking Yogi.
Sinbad
Winnie the
ride.
Pooh. You said there was like some. Like,
we got the great honey hunt. Yeah,
Sinbad's
the great honey
based.
hunt. Yeah,
there should be more Sinbad stories.
I just went to my daughter's school festival where in Japan they do like kind of crazy, like they basically made a bunch of fake theme park rides, and the senior class had made like a fake honey hunt. So you while you're riding, you do a spot the difference, and then they're like, they open a curtain, and do we get in those chairs? Yeah, you get in the chairs. It's 2 classroom chairs put on like a roller, for boxes, and then there's like 2 students like pushing you around like it's a trackless ride through their classroom, which they made to look like
honestly,
honey hunt.
Every high school should have like a dark ride class. Like, just imagine how many engineering, science, math, mythology, like it's all there combined into this one experience.
That's what my daughter's school did. They had a fake Pirates, they had a fake Monsters Inc. Ride and Seek, a couple other fake rides, lots of fake rides. So yeah,
they're honestly one of the better experiences to go with in like VR too, because you can just like put it on and kind of do like that dark ride style where you're just like seated and you're just looking around, seeing things happen. Maybe we need to work on like an occult Disney VR dark ride. That would be cool.
Ooh, yeah. No, the first day my daughter's class had some problems with theirs. They were doing it based on an anime, but she stays up all night trying to change their fast pass system for the second day of the festival, which I was like, well, I guess that's learning something. I don't have that skill. I don't know how to work out that kind of a system. So I guess we're winding down on Treasure Planet. If anyone else had
I feel bad because I know we kept jumping into like every other thing.
We're extremely tangenty around here.
Cool. I'm ADHD. I'm a fan of that. I don't know. I think the Treasure Planet though is one of those stories where as long as everyone has the basic version of the story, it's going to be different. Like, so they were hoping that all these people watching this, it's the first time they're hearing it, and they're like, okay, well, this is all new to a 10-year-old. They haven't seen Treasure Island yet, and so that'll be, their first in with this. It's a great story, and it's a hook, right? I think that Disney doesn't like to do that anymore. They don't like to rely on legacy stories, and this was one where they're like, well, it's safe if we rely on a legacy story. The same model as like Disney on Ice, like you're saying, like doing the theater plays. But we know Lion King works. We'll put that on Broadway. That way we don't have to worry about anything. Like that logic, I think, kind of dies with the Treasure Planet.
Yeah, there's definitely a different media world where this movie was successful. I mean, this being successful or Atlantis being successful would have very much changed the trajectory of what we got afterwards. So, always it's definitely a nexus point for which way these movies go.
What about Treasure Planet versus Atlantis?
I was thinking about that. I think this one looks better, but I like Atlantis better.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it. There's something about the Atlantis story that's really cool. And the levels of conspiracy that are happening, and that it's so connected to our world in a way that if you're into conspiracy, you can be like, wow, this is like literally what's real. But with Treasure Yeah, Treasure Planet is so beautiful. It's like I remember seeing it on a big screen and just it was really Avatar level impressive as a child to see just like the hand animated space stuff. And I remember really loving animation almost because of it, thinking like this is so different than CGI stuff because you can see in every frame how it's shifting. And I remember thinking that was so important. That it's definitely one of the more beautiful movies that Disney's done. This is one of those movies that even if you don't pay attention to the story that much with, and you have your own soundtrack, you could put it on the background like with Fantasia kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's a good lava lamp movie.
Yeah,
I'll do that. I'll do that with a Metropolis a lot. Another good
Totally.
one. Well, also Metropolis, you can still follow the story because it's silent, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Metropolis. One of my favorites.
I'm still trying to find a good copy that comes with the subtitles, though. I can't find it.
YouTube's got some good ones.
Yeah, they got the 4K 2010 full edition with the deleted scenes, the lost scenes found in Argentina, the 8mm copy that's been cleaned up, right? So you can watch that version, which has the Babelsberg orchestra playing live with it. That's probably like one of the better versions. I think it's also upscaled too.
Okay, I guess we'll wind. Yeah. I guess we'll wind this one down for the day. Then, Andreas, you want to give the folks your plugs? Oh, next for us is. Sorry, that's the me looking for things song. I think it's Jungle Book 2. It is Jungle Book 2, which did get a theatrical release, and thus we will be returning to the Jungle Book's verse, Jungle Book verse.
I was just listening to Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book through, and then thinking about like a few.
Well, they didn't read that book for the movie, so
no,
but they were told not to.
I was pretty shocked by how close that it can be, though. There are some aspects about it that are pretty good, and it is also interesting that the Jungle Book is about it's like the first gay Disney like male parents raising a child movie, right? You've got this Majira and what's the name? I mean,
you've got Sword in the Stone, which is kind of like a gay mentorship movie too.
That's fair. I guess it is kind of just like pervasive in all Disney, but there's something about the Jungle Book, no? Like it's just the way it is. It's especially because it's like the Call of the Wild, the '60s, and everything like that.
Well, we've talked about the Jungle Book being like the first entry point into like the you will eat bugs and be happy sort of mentality. That is Baloo. Baloo's entire song is basically take UBI, take whatever the government gives you, and just enjoy that. Be happy that you've got that alone.
Yeah, I think it's interesting if you read the book, because that part he's talking about like how to not upset the bees, how to get just enough honey, how to be respectful to these animals, how to be careful about monkeys, because monkeys are the most like he's very racist against monkeys, basically. I mean, but yeah, there's a lot to the Jungle Book. I wouldn't say I would say more that people used to think being raised. There's a French idea that being raised by wolves makes you a savage, but then there's the idea of the noble savage, and then there's this British Indian colony. And Rudyard Kipling saying, "Wow, if I were raised by wolves, if only to be raised by wolves instead of British men." Because British men are so much worse cowards than the wolf. I wish to God that I was raised by wolves, because wolves love each other. And that's Jungle Book, I think.
Well, and that's the inverse of Tarzan, which basically says if you take a British man and put him in the middle of the wilderness, then he will not only thrive, but he'll elevate everything around him and also cause them to thrive, because that is the greatness of the British mind.
Man, if only your Rice Burroughs was Mormon. The poor guy. He didn't know any better.
Anyway, that was a wild tangent. But yes, I wanted to give you the floor to plug there if you got some stuff going on the internets or otherwise.
Go to the Exertus, XIRTUS. I do a show with Thomas every Tuesday. Sink Tank. Matt, let's do another show sometime. Please come on our show anytime. Love to talk to you about Japan and the way the world's going over there. That sounds like a fun thing too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely invited to. For you, it would be Tuesday. Well, for me, it's Tuesdays 9 Eastern. So I don't know if if you can squeeze that at any
might
point.
be able to work. I might be coming in from a phone if I do that, but yeah, might be possible.
My other big plug is we are finally, and I know Andres has been hearing me say this for like 2 years, so he rolls his eyes, but we're actually
for real this
launching. It's for real this time. Trust me this time, guys. But on July 16th, I believe, is the 55th anniversary of the Apollo 11 mission launch date. I think it goes to the 20th. Allegedly. Well, it was the official, propaganda version of it. So what better day than to launch the NASA comic on the launch day of, and since it's the 55th anniversary special, I got a whole like $55 pledge package that's got like a bunch of cool stuff and like a foil cover and all that. So that's the next really huge one at nasacomics.com.
I just realized you need to make like a Launchables box that has
I hate you for saying that, because now I do have to make a Launchables box. And I've been super freaking busy because after I wasn't allowed to set up new Kickstarter campaigns because I had to fulfill the last two. So as soon as I finished filling those last ones, I've been like just setting up Kickstarter campaigns left and right. So nasacomic.com is launching in like a week from now. After that, I've got one called illuminaticomic.com. You'll sense a theme with the domain names. That one's a pamphlet that I did with Donut on the Bavarian Illuminati, Rosicrucians, Alumbrados, the Mozart, Beethoven connection. It goes deep. We go deep on boy, like as far as you possibly can into Bavarian Illuminati. And then I also got one at secretmysterieschool.com, which will be a whole campaign to bring that one as a trade paperback. Oh, and I got my new stickers in. Birds are not real.
Which, you can't trust birds, man.
Oh, man. As for me, I do a lot of podcasting. You can check out the Nexus for those on Patreon at Podcastius. I talk about the Twilight Zone at Time Enough Podcast. Space 1999 at Podcast 1999, and what are supposed to be really good movies and really bad movies according to IMDb users on Films and Filth.
Based.
Okay,
Awesome.
I guess I'm going to blast off into the ether and jump into a black hole, because you can do that in this space.
What does it sound like when you do that?
Ready for a cosmic conspiracy about Stanley Kubrick, moon landings, and the CIA? Go visit nasacomic.com.
nasacomic.com, CIA's biggest con. Stanley Kubrick put us on, that's why we're singing this song. I'm nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Yeah, go visit nasacomic.com. Oh, nasacomic.com, CIA's biggest con. Stanley Kubrick put us on, that's why we're singing this song. I'm nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Yeah, go visit nasacomic.com.
Never a Straight Answer is a 40-page comic about Stanley Kubrick directing the Apollo space missions.
Yeah, go visit nasacomic.com.
This is the perfect read for comic, Kubrick, or conspiracy fans of all ages. For more details, visit nasacomic.com.
Spread the word with propaganda packs, all for just $40 shipped at paranoidamerican.com.
Paranoid propaganda packs. We got facts on these sticker slaps. So grab yourself a stack and go attack with these paranoid propaganda packs.
These huge all-weather slaps will last in public for years to come. Remind citizens that birds are not real. Self-immolation is an option, and might make you magnetic. Do your part and get a propaganda pack today from paranoidamerican.com.
Paranoid propaganda packs. We got facts on these sticker slaps. So grab yourself a stack and go attack with these paranoid propaganda packs.
What are you waiting for? Go to paranoidamerican.com right now and get a paranoid propaganda pack.
All American stickers, cryptids, cults, and killers. We got all your favorite conspiracies, all of that and more on our sticker sheets. Paranoid American stickers, they'll make you smile and snicker. False flags and secret societies, all of these and more on our sticker sheets.
Explore the unique with Paranoid American sticker sheets. Unearth tales of cryptids, cults, and mysteries through each sticker. These won't last long. Get yours now at paranoidamerican.com.
All American stickers, cryptids, cults, and killers. We got all your favorite conspiracies, all of that and more on our sticker sheets. Paranoid American stickers, they'll make you smile and snicker. False flags and secret societies, all of these and more on our sticker sheets.
What the heck are you waiting for? Discover the extraordinary with Paranoid American sticker sheets. From cryptids in the night to cults out of sight, each sticker is a unique find. Get yours now at paranoidamerican.com.
Paranoid. Yo. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlighten your brain? Give you the flight, my plane. Paper, the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real to real. You will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the Lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hate, maybe a language, a game. How they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cost, they are the shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, met is the apex. Execution of flame you out, nuclear bomb distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blunt smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Matters not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when a beat hits, so thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.